Hello, there are too many games this year in my backlog and, well, just in general. In an attempt to make my way through a bunch of games coming up to the end of the year, I thought I'd do a small series recapping some of the things I played, giving some brief thoughts and what crossed my mind. That could be the biggest games of the year or things you haven't heard of. And this restriction may make it hard to fully give a take as such on games, as I'm trying to make sure none get over the 10-minute mark, but I guess that's part of the fun too. Here's what I thought of Afterlove EP. Grief is perhaps one of the single most prominent themes in narrative-focused indie games right now, and I think there are two central reasons for this. As many indie games look for emotional depth over flashy visuals or complicated world building, grief is so universal a feeling that it's a good way of connecting to an audience, both in regards to emotions and from the front of a Steam page. It's a selling point in its own right. Another reason I think grief is so prevalent in games is because it's so prevalent in life. It's as natural as eating or breathing and something felt by every person, regardless of if they want to acknowledge it or admit it. Grief and overcoming grief is its own language, complete with customs, cultural norms, and body language. Afterlove EP places you in the shoes of a teenager and musician who, a year after losing his girlfriend, tries to finally move forward and make up for the gulf that death left on the people around him. He takes the time after losing his girlfriend to disconnect from those around him, and that leaves him in a space where he struggles to ever get across how he felt to those left alive. And in a sense, grief isn't really a theme here, but a backdrop for love, be it the love of a person or love of music, art, politics, and the intertwining of all those things. It's all just a really pretty mess. And I do mean pretty. The art style isn't overly complicated, but well balanced between style and clarity. It plays around with colour well and knows how to pop when the game wants to get heavy. It gets heavy too. There's a wonderful melodrama in it, all about teenagers who are looking past or misunderstanding each other. I really love the way it focuses on how selfish people can be at bad times, and it has this duality it employs between making you see how affected our characters are whilst nailing down their flaws. It's quite unflinching in that way, and as Rama, our main character, you can lash out, you can go to therapy, you can spend your days avoiding those big decisions, and this can shape your ending. It doesn't seem to have a ton of endings, but ultimately the two biggest decisions you make are about your love life going forward and the status of the band you've spent years writing with. The break from everything after Rama's partner's death cut his band members out, and a shell developed between you and the rest of the world. It's good stuff and explored well. Our main character hears their girlfriend in their head, Johnny Silverhand style, and it's quite a sweet dynamic, hearing them go back and forth on new music releases or things that have happened throughout the day. Your ex is bubbly and excitable, but a little biting at parts too, and quite willing to call our main character out. Both a tool holding them back and something pushing them forward. As a vehicle for self-improvement, it lays a foundation, a lily pad to get through the tides that are the sudden death of a loved one. Gameplay-wise, Afterlove EP is part rhythm game, part visual novel, and it has this almost Persona-like time management system where you can explore different routes, relationships, and side activities on different days throughout the year. I do think it's not quite as open-ended as you might think or hope, but I didn't mind mostly following the whims of the games to its conclusion. You still get a decent bit of choice and a few romance options, but there are broad story beats that the game really wants you to hit, and it will make you do so. I think arguably the weakest part of the game is actually its rhythm element. The Guitar Hero-like minigame is pretty basic, not very challenging, and you will spend some of that time repeating the same songs. At points, I definitely felt like I was getting through it just to see what would happen next. In a sense, that draws together both my biggest critique of Afterlove EP and also what made me like it so much. I thought the music that accompanies this mode to be great, infusing elements of emo, crunchy, emotional indie rock, even parts of post-rock. Solos I used to build bridges into a punchy chorus or add some weight to its three-piece band, and it feels full and expressive. The best music is as weighty and raw as the writing, and I'm so glad for that. And speaking of emotional depth, I really loved the exploration of our main character through the things he hears his girlfriend say in his head, and the ways he warps what he believes her perspective to be to fit what he wants. I think when you argue with people, it can be really important to start over and identify any areas of miscommunication, as it's easy to wrap up what they've said into a monster, a blade to stab yourself in the gut with. And this is part of what I found people struggle with most years after losing another person. There's often a disconnect between the person and what you've turned them into, rerunning lines, thoughts, and phrases over and over in your head, ruminating on the person lost. I think that's part of why we care so much about final words. Afterlove EP is good at enunciating and empathizing with that monster. It also has a cast of genuinely intriguing people, subject to whims that they struggle to understand or simply can't deal with sometimes. They're not always likable, but they are understandable. It's not wacky hijinks that cause anger and pain between people, but pity, egos, and a million other human things. And I found exploring what makes characters tick interesting. I liked peeling back those layers. It can be a little flawed in presentation though. I like its style, its tone, and its music, but it can definitely lose part of its atmosphere and those little technical elements. One moment has a band member tell you about a new bass solo, then proceed to show you the music, only for that new bass solo not to show up. In this same sense, songs sometimes don't fully match what's on screen. There's a lot of S's in that sentence. There's a definable rhythm to how notes come up in the music minigame, but they don't match the melody or emphasize what you're doing, and that can make the gameplay a tad boring. You are also occasionally greeted to an acoustic set or a single guitar, only for there to be a broader backing track present. I think there's artistic license to look past this, as I did while playing, or argue that the backing track is imagined, but it builds towards a feeling that the game is just missing something at a point. It has all these elements that are pretty great, but doesn't quite wrap them together as I would like. Afterlove EP is a messy, melodramatic game that made me want to start gigging again, and I've been thinking of a way to say that ever since I played it earlier this year. I think for some of the flaws I saw in it at the time, it stirred something in me and redeveloped an itch to put my own music out in the world again. And for some time now, the entirety of the music used in my own videos is my own music. It started with me digging up an old hard drive from half a decade ago with songs I didn't fully develop or didn't want to put out into the world as a way to give these old ideas new life. I felt like if I wasn't going to do something with them, it would be nice for them to have the space to breathe anyway, but those songs aren't the only ones I have in videos now. Sometimes I even create songs because I think they'll fit in a video. And I think Afterlove EP plays a small part in that fact. I think its depiction of gigging, of making music and engaging with other musicians is certainly less grimy than my own. It's less filled with playing songs to crowds of 5 people talking to each other, or really howling in the middle of the chorus to drown out the sounds of chatting just outside. The shaking in your hands walking up to the stage, unsure if you'll even manage to get your digits into those chord shapes without rattling or chickening out. But one thing it does capture is the floating afterwards. Just a few seconds after my last song in a set, be there 5 people or 50 people watching, has always reminded me of that weightlessness you get when you step off a treadmill. A much dorkier runner's high tingling through you and making steps just feel a little easier for a day. And in a sense, chasing that high is part of why I miss gigging every year, and the nerves are what stopped me from booking too many. Afterlove EP is a game I found myself unabashedly enjoying, flaws and all, and I guess that feels rather pertinent looking back. It's a game worth bearing the shaking hands to get to the high on the other side. Sometimes even to love requires just a little bit of courage. Thank you for watching my video on Afterlove EP. I'm going to try and make this post-yap thing a little shorter. To be fair, I have 50 seconds left. I was about to say so that I can get it in time so this will be less than 10 minutes. I'm rambling already and I'm 10 seconds in. Anyway, if you like this video, liking the video really helps. Subscribing, of course, would be greatly appreciated. Did you play this game? If you did, let me know. It came out 10 months ago now, and I guess it kind of floated by, but I think there will be people out there who really appreciate it, and I think I'm one of those. I definitely have my critiques. Anyway, I liked it, and if you could subscribe, that'd be great. Thank you.